what life do you want to live? And then the way to get there. So we look at their medications, we look at their lifestyle, and just whatever you can do to find your way because migraine really doesn't deserve to steal your life.
You're listening to the What the Gut podcast, where busy moms can come for a holistic approach to health and vitality. I'm Allison, your host, a holistic health and wellness coach. In this space, we'll dive into the intricacies of achieving holistic wellness while balancing the demands of daily life as a busy mom. What the Gut is your haven for navigating the challenges that come with juggling numerous tasks while aiming for a healthier, more balanced life. Join me as we uncover practical solutions to common health hurdles, from managing fatigue to understanding all things gut health. Through insightful discussions, actionable insights, and tailored lifestyle strategies, my goal here is to empower you to embrace a vibrant, nourishing life while saying goodbye to being overwhelmed and exhausted. So if you're ready to embark on this transformative journey towards holistic well-being, hit that subscribe button. Get ready to discover the secrets to thriving in motherhood while nurturing your overall wellness. A quick reminder, everything discussed here is for educational and empowering purposes only and is not intended for personalized medical advice. Consult your personal healthcare provider for personalized medical advice. Welcome to What the Gut, where we create our own path to holistic health, one episode at a time.
Today on the podcast, I have got Lindsay de los Santos. Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here as well. So, you are a migraine advocate, a writer, a speaker, and content creator. You take a holistic approach and really bring people the best support whenever you are being their advocate. And your goal is really to empower others to live their best lives. We do have that in common. And I know that you love what you do. I would really love for you to share what a migraine advocate is.
I think there's some people in the migraine world that feel alone and feel like they've reached the end of the support that's there for them. And as a migraine advocate, I try to educate them and encourage them to know there is hope and there's always something around the corner for your treatment. And then also opening their eyes to it isn't just a medication. There are a lot of other things that we can do. And I've lived that firsthand for many years. So I can see the difference. I was having so many attacks and my husband and I were like, we just got to find a better way. So that's where I'm at is trying to meet. And I have met globally, had people connect. And then I actually ran into someone in person and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I listen to your podcast or I look at your stuff." That was just a pleasure. So as an advocate, I really think my job is to bring people hope.
Yeah, I love that. And I've heard of like patient advocate or be an advocate for yourself. But as
Mhm.
far as somebody else, like being an advocate for you with a specific like health concern, that's a whole new thing to me. I love it. To me, it makes me think of having a birth doula at your birth to support you. Like you need somebody to support you with certain health issues too. That's not necessarily the prescriber or the doctor. So I just
Yeah.
think that's such an awesome concept. I know I have had 1 or 2 migraines in my life,
Mhm.
and it was terrible. Like,
Mhm.
I was a teenager at the time, and I'm sure my parents remember this too, because it had never happened to me. I was driving home, I had to pull over because
Mhm.
I couldn't see, and a policeman, a sweet policeman, was like, "Okay, what's this person doing?"
Sure.
Pulled over, and he drove me home. And
Oh,
so I show up at home I was like 15 or 16 and show up at home with this policeman, and my parents are like, "Oh my gosh." I'm like, "Ah, I just can't see right. I can't drive." It was terrible, but thankfully the policeman didn't think I was like intoxicated or anything like that. He could have easily thought that. But so just having people to support you no matter who they are when you're having a migraine or going through all that, like that's just so important. I know that you really embody this holistic approach, which I love. What is it that like brought you to this holistic approach of being an advocate for people with migraines or any
Mhm.
kind of like health concern?
A couple of years ago, I was at the hospital about 8 times in 1 year and admitted for a week each time. So my attacks are very severe. And so that is when my husband and I said, "This we're not living. Like, this is not a state, this is not okay." And
Yeah.
so that brought me to look at what are other things, because I felt like every time that was happening, my current doctor was just upping one medicine or putting another one down, and it wasn't doing anything. And
Yeah.
I just, again, was like, there has to be more, not just the medicine, because the medicine isn't helping me. We hadn't found the right combo. But
Mhm.
then there are other things I knew that I could bring in. I did try acupuncture, that's been helpful. Biofeedback, these are other things that you can do. And a lot of people don't know about them. And I was discouraged because I thought, why didn't my doctor tell me about them? And I
Yeah.
love her, but it was just, I just thought, gosh, I felt if I'd only known these things years ago. And so that's why I'm really an advocate, because I want people to know that there is more. And often you do have to advocate for yourself, and that can be hard. But I also help people navigate their doctor's appointments, go in with a list of questions that they think they need, and just really being prepared for what that's going to look like. And healthcare is a beast as well. Helping share some tips there, because also there are some resources, but you do have to look for them. So I realized on my path, and I thought there's so many others that just don't know about these options. And I was like, I've got to share what I've learned.
I love that. I do the same thing. I've never thought about describing myself as like a patient advocate or just an advocate for other people, but that's completely what it is. And I think even with my own health journey, like we have to go through something to experience like something hard, something where you do get at this dead end of, okay, what I'm doing is not working. What I'm doing that other people, professionals have told me to do, it's not working. That's the joy though of going through something like that, is that you can use that to help others in the end and share your stories. I love that though, because as somebody who was trained in Western medicine, I worked in clinic, I was trained as a nurse practitioner. There's so many holistic modalities that I only knew of to tell my patients because of my own experiences, right? It wasn't taught to me in school in Western medicine. How are other providers that are trained a certain way supposed to even know that to mention to their patients, right? Yeah, it's wild. It really is. Whenever you say you're a patient advocate, though, like I know that you mentioned helping people get like a list together of questions before they see their doctor, which I think is wonderful. I love that idea. What are some other things that you do with them or recommend?
Well, yeah, we really look at their treatment program and say there are other things if you want to try those, because I'm not a medical doctor, but I've lived this path for 30 years. So I feel like that's a little bit of experience. And then I was trained by the American Migraine Foundation. I went through their program, and then also for Miles for Migraine. So have some background there. But I think when people come to me, we really look at what life do you want to live, and then the way to get there. So we look at their medications, we look at their lifestyle, and just whatever you can do to find your way, because migraine really doesn't deserve to steal your life. And we also talk about how migraine is a whole body disease. It's not just your head. There are so many symptoms to migraine, and many you would think, really? This is going on in my head, and then this is wrong too. It's just really educating and being someone to encourage them.
Yeah, and it sounds like just somebody to educate them on other treatment modalities, and certain things might not work for somebody. Like, medication might be the tool that works best for somebody, but if it's not, at least knowing what these other avenues are, and maybe that's something they want to pursue instead, but just really having the education and knowledge of knowing what all their options are and not just, like, what their Western medicine provider says, because they are limited in their scope of
Mhm.
mentioning these other holistic modalities. So I know you mentioned like acupuncture. What are some other things that you have done or that you share with others to help besides medications?
Yeah, we got a list to look at, and sometimes it's what the person is the most comfortable starting with. And fortunately, I always say, I'm not going to recommend something for you that I'm not willing to try myself. And so we look at what are the options you want to try. And some people are ready to try acupuncture, and some are a little nervous with all the needles. And so it really doesn't hurt. And so we talk about what that looks like. And then with the biofeedback, and then there's also some neuromodulation devices where you can wear one on your arm, or there's a separately that you put on your head. And for me, those have been very successful in helping. It helps if you can catch your migraine a little early, but they're still, I have found, very helpful, and not medication, just finding all these things to help.
Yeah, for sure. Now, have you ever found any specific like foods or ways of living, exercise, anything that like for you personally has ever triggered migraines or either like significantly improved it?
I have, and each person has to look at those things in their life. And I call this Dr. Caffeine because I ended up seeing him when I was in the hospital. And he said, "You just can't have any coffee. We just don't do that." And then I saw five other doctors, and they're like, "That's not actually accurate. We ask you to stay under 200 milligrams unless you're getting a migraine every single time you drink coffee," which fortunately I was not. I know
That's
for me,
good.
I can tell if I go much past that, that it could trigger a migraine. So I stay within that range, and I haven't had any problems. There are a lot of foods that could trigger migraine. I have a whole list, and that's in my course as well. And again, it depends on the person. Everybody is different. And my mom
Right.
also has migraine, and some of the things that bother her don't bother me. So
Yeah.
it's very personalized.
Yes. But the caffeine thing, like I've heard that before too. And so I think at least people who are prone to migraines, like just knowing that, keeping that on their radar, at least like that might be a trigger for them is good to know. And I know you just said you've got a course. So what do you do for people in your course?
So in my course, I have a few different sections, and I start the first one with just educating. And in the migraine world, we've got things that we didn't used to have. Some people need to know how to share with their families. And I have a big section on advocacy because I feel like we say that, but how do I really do that myself? And so I have questions and things that you can tell your family so you don't feel, I think it is an invisible disease. You don't really know what's going on up there. And so in my course, I really try to equip people with how to handle that piece. So they've got the education, they've got the advocacy, and then we go through triggers. And sometimes you don't realize that something is a trigger for you. So we talk about that. And then I have a migraine kit that I keep with me. And so I show what those things are with lots of different options. So I just really want to give people the information, and from someone that really cares and wants to help them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think just when people start having migraines, they go to their doctor, they get a medication, they don't think about other things they could do for it or being prepared
Mhm.
for it because they just hope it's never going to happen again. They don't think
I know.
which you don't want to like live that life of always anticipating for something bad to happen, but you do want to be prepared, right?
Yeah,
I
that's
think that
right. I had an opportunity through one of my trainings, and these physicians said, "We're not headache specialists. And when you're going through your, curriculum and everything to become a doctor, you get 30 minutes about migraine." And then I thought I didn't have time to go into what do you get for gut health and other things, but I thought, so if you stick with your primary care doctor, you're really not getting what you need.
yeah,
Migraine.
unless the provider has taken continuing education or is really interested themselves, it's very basic knowledge and education to manage somebody's condition, right? But to
Mhm,
manage it and
mhm.
keep it at bay. So if you keep that in mind, if that's what you want, then that's a great provider to go to. But and it varies with provider, right? Some are different, some are more invested in their continuing education and stuff like that for sure. And I know that Lindsay, you are a Christian as well, and your faith
Mhm.
plays a big role in your journey and it's just been a source of hope for you and healing. And I'm curious, how has your faith played a role in your migraine journey and becoming who you are now as a migraine advocate?
Mm. That's such a great question, and I enjoyed listening to your podcast because I could hear your faith, and I was like, "This is the best. We're looking at health, but now we're really thinking about what's the most important thing, which is our faith." And I keep these bracelets on. One of them says faith, so just to remind me if it's hard that it's going to be okay. So I think
Yeah.
that's the thing with my faith, just knowing that God has always gotten me through so many different things, and making it to the other side sometimes feels impossible, but just reminded myself that I've gone through other things and it's been okay. So I think that's something to remember if you're struggling with your health in any way, that God's got you. Sometimes we just need to listen or pray for our own providers that they're going to have integrity and they're going to have compassion and all of those things. And I think when I was praying one day, I thought, this is a purpose for the pain. Not that I
Yeah.
wanted that pain, but it has really ignited my passion to help others. So
Yeah.
you can't do anything without faith.
I completely agree. And that's something too with my own health journey, the things that I've gone through. I'm like, I never really questioned why did this happen to me? Why is this happening to me? It's just because I did have such a strong faith, thankfully, realized soon that, okay, like this is what you're doing to me, Lord, or allowing to happen to me. And this is my purpose is to share with others, like, how to avoid certain things or how to be an advocate for yourself, right? Or find what works best for you. Because one treatment modality, one medication, whatever it isn't the answer. For somebody, it might be, but for others, it might not be. And I think really just finding like what works for you is what's so important. So many people go to their providers these days and just really put their health in their provider's hands and expect them to just take care of all of it. And we should be able to do that to an extent, right? Like we should be able to do that and to depend on them. But the truth about it is, though, is that any provider is a human too. And like we're all at fault. And I think it's not to blame a certain type of provider or certain type of medication or treatment modality on anything. Like I'm not trying to beat one thing down and bash it, right? But it's just realizing that like we are in a broken world and finding our true healing honestly is going to come from the Lord anyway, but using all these different treatment tools and modalities to find what works best for you and
Mhm.
knowing that like you have it inside of you, the Lord's going to put it inside of you to find what's best that works for you. So I love
Yeah,
that.
that's great. Yeah, I agree with every word. I have just been down on my knees and just prayed, and God is right there. And when you feel his presence, another verse I use is this too shall pass and
Yeah,
joy will come in the morning. So just remembering, like, I've gotten through the other things. This is going to be temporary. And
right.
feeling, I'm going to feel better, even if it's for a while. And hopefully that while becomes longer and longer.
And I just thinking about like suffering and going through any kind of illness, having a migraine, health struggles, whatever it is. It just makes me think about Job and just
Mm.
going through everything he did. I'm like, oh Lord. But he was still there with him the whole time.
Mhm.
And he still showed up and the Lord provided. And it's good.
It is good. Yeah, I have done it some other podcasts, but I feel like this one really stands out to me with your faith, and that's the people that don't have the faith are the most discouraged ones. You need that faith to help you on this journey, and it really is a journey. When there's gonna be where you're gonna feel really down, but hold on. I always say hold on to those good days and
Yeah.
look for more. Don't give up because it will this too shall pass. So
And I love how you pointed that out too, because I've worked with so many people as their nurse practitioner or as their health coach, and they get so far in their health
Mhm.
journey, right? And a lot of those people who hit this place where they just get stuck or they're in this cycle of repetitive behaviors of just not seeing themselves where they want to be. I want to encourage everybody to, if you are not a Christian or if you don't know the Lord, I would just try to get to know him. Just start somewhere because he is there for you. And that is literally the only place you're going to find true healing. I don't really know
Mhm.
how else to say that, but especially from a holistic approach, your whole mind, body, soul, faith,
Mhm.
spirit, like it all has to heal. Everything is connected. Lindsay, this has been such a fun conversation. This has been
Yeah.
really, really fun. I love that we do such similar things as far as speaking to people about finding what works best for them. I love
Mhm.
that. And that we've been on similar journeys, our own health journeys that have allowed us to now speak to other people from that. Is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with today?
I still hear a lot of people discouraged. And so, if you're at that end where you've been told there just isn't anything else to try, I would really encourage you to consider going to a different doctor. Quite honestly, getting a second opinion. For my story, I ended up at Diamond Headache Clinic in Chicago. And I thought that I had tried everything. That's how it was presented to me. And they gave
Mhm.
me a list. And I thought, there's 25 things on here that I haven't tried. And it was just, I just cried and I was like, how did I not come to this place sooner? So I
Yeah.
really believe in advocating for yourself. And if you need to go to another provider, then that's okay. Because I finally thought, I'm just not getting better. I'm a loyal person. It was hard to leave, but I thought I just have to find a different way. And so that has been life changing for me. So I want others to have that as well. And I'm here to encourage them along their journey, anything that I can do to help.
Yeah. I love that you, mentioned that too, that you went to so many different providers until you found one that actually gave you more
Mm,
answers. And with my own health journey, I was in that same situation with the birth of my second child. Some of my listeners may have heard me tell this story before. So if you have, you're going to hear it again. But I love telling the story. So my first child was a scheduled C-section because she was big. I was told she was really big. She was going to be a C-section. She was 9 pounds, so she was big. But I also was, like, not in the healthcare field at that time. I didn't know any different. I just did what my doctor said, and it was a beautiful experience. Everything went great. But then with my second child, it was, like, a few weeks before she was born, and my doctor was like, "These are your dates you can choose from to schedule your C-section."
mm,
And I remember asking her, "Oh, okay, like, why am I having a C-section this time?" Because this baby was smaller, like, I was not gaining as much weight. I was so sick. I was like, "She's not gonna be as big as the other one. Like, why are we
mm.
doing this again?" And a C-section's a major surgery too.
It is.
The recovery was a little challenging for somebody who had never had a surgery in their life. And I really questioned that, and she explained to me that the facility where she delivered, the hospital, they did not recognize vaginal births after C-sections because of
Mm,
the very low, it was like less than 1% rate of uterine rupture that would happen.
mm,
And I said, "Okay, is there a medical reason though why I would need a C-section?" And she said, "No."
mm,
And so I went home and did all kinds of research, and that opened a whole can of worms because I was in, like, this mom's group, and I was like, "What are my rights as a mom, as a
mm,
birthing mom?" And I'm telling you, like, every person in the world answered me. It was great, though, because I met my doula, who I hired through that, who was
mm,
very much in the role like you were, like, she was my advocate and educated me on all these things. But I'm so thankful for that doctor, though, that did tell me it wasn't necessary, and she was doing what her company policy was, but she was very honest with me, which I
mm,
appreciated. And she ended up referring me to other doctors, gave me a list of other providers in the area who would allow me to have a vaginal birth if I wanted to.
mm.
And I did a lot of my own research, and I ended up switching doctors at 37 weeks and 5 days.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and I did have a vaginal birth, and it was a whole other experience. Prepare your body before you do that, ladies. Let me tell you, you have to prepare your body. My body was not prepared, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life,
Mhm,
but I'm
mm,
so glad that I did it. But just that experience has shaped so much of the way that I am about my health now, and just standing up for myself and looking into, like, my own health, my other options, and especially, like, with my kids too, right? Like, being
mm.
their advocate for things, like, what's best for my baby during the birthing experience, whatever. So, that's a whole other subject, but anybody out there listening, just being your own advocate and, like, your family, your children, your spouse, they see
Mhm.
how you handle things and how you're your own advocate and you're setting that example. Um, and it's so important. It's so important because had I not spoken up and been an advocate, I would have had another major surgery, which just like it wasn't necessary. And it's a major surgery. I don't know. It
It
blows
is.
my mind just to think about it. Crazy experience, but definitely taught me to speak up for myself for
Yeah,
sure. So,
that's hard as a mom. You're having to listen to that doctor.
yeah.
Um, but that's a great story.
But what was even more amazing though is that the doctor that I did find, because and I want y'all to keep this in mind too, anybody listening, I'm paying them. Like,
Mm,
I'm paying my doctor. I'm hiring them to work for me. And
that's
so
right.
the doctor that I left, I didn't want to. I loved her. I loved that doctor. She delivered my first baby, but I respected her so much more for being honest with me,
Mhm,
and I still keep up with her to this day, and I have 3 kids now. She has kept up with me through those other pregnancies and checked on me after those births, even though she didn't deliver those babies, She
Mm.
completely respected my decision. I don't stay with one provider because you're afraid of hurting their feelings or something. But the new provider that I found, she was like ecstatic. She was
Mm.
so excited for me and couldn't wait for me to do this. And I remember whenever my baby was finally being born after 2 days of labor, she walked in the room and was like jumping up and down, so happy for me.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, that's what I need right now. Just the whole experience of having somebody else advocate for me and a provider who wanted what I wanted because I wanted it. That made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went to the Diamond Headache Clinic in Chicago and they gave you this list of all of these different things that you had not done. What was that like for you?
Yeah. It felt like a huge weight lifted off of me. I felt because I was so discouraged. I thought that's not the message you want to get from your doctor or anyone. And
Yeah.
because they're connected to a hospital, it's their own floor that is the headache clinic. So when you step off that elevator, it is like you have entered somewhere else. Their lights are low. They don't have the like a bad fluorescent light. It's such a
In case
trigger.
you have a headache, you
Yeah,
can't.
yeah, they're silent, everybody there, like, in the halls, you don't hear anything, and I've been admitted before where it's I have my earplugs because it's just so loud and the beeping and all the things, but when I went there, my life changed, and that caused me to do some more research as well, and so I think when you find something, you just want everybody to know. When I've had
Right.
people reach back out to me and say, "I didn't know to do this," and so now and they're feeling better, and I just that is the goal, to get everybody to have those good days and more good days. Because I think a lot of people feel like I think you mentioned this too, this is it for me. Like it's not gonna get better. And I was leaning towards, okay, am I gonna be like that? I just thought, no, I'm not gonna let that happen when it's just
Right.
it is a hard road at times, but then there's so much relief if you find what works for you or when you find what works for you.
And I know so many people too are I was speaking to somebody yesterday who is a year older than me, and she was like, "I guess this is just part of getting older," like, whatever she was talking about, her concern. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, we are not old. What are you talking about? This that should not." There are so many things that happen to people, so many, like, chronic diseases and
Mhm,
conditions that I think society has just accepted as, "Oh, that's just going to happen to me at some point," and they
mm,
associate it with getting older, and I don't understand it. There's very little that as far as chronic disease goes, that goes hand in hand with aging,
mm.
and I just I was like, "Oh, man, I'm doomed." Are you serious? It's all
It's
downhill
so
from
funny.
here, and the girl and I, were in our 30s, and I'm like, "That is a terrible outlook. I'm just getting started." I know that there's people out there listening who they think that, "This is starting to happen to me. I had to get on a medication. That's just part of getting older." Baby, no, it's not. It's
Yeah,
not.
it is not
It is, yeah, it is just it is insane. It blows my mind. I think about, like, Abraham, all these people in the Bible who lived to be over 100 years old. They didn't have these chronic health problems. It's not part of aging,
it's
and
a
they
great
walked
point.
over 10,000 steps a day, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
blows
so
my
funny, but it's very accurate, so that's encouraging also. I know that's not old at all, I just have to say, like, that is not old, and there's just so many factors that can happen where you develop that chronic illness and or disease that
yeah,
and I think sometimes when we just slough it off with age, then you're not gonna get to the root cause. So we have to really be open to what might be happening
right. Well,
regardless of the health problem.
and I think if you just accept it to, "Oh, it's just my age, I'm getting older," you are settling yourself, like,
Mm,
you're giving up on yourself in a sense and saying, "Okay, like, I'm not gonna be determined to figure out what's really causing this." You're putting it to
yeah,
the side, blaming it on something else instead of taking your own responsibility for it. Whether you intended to obviously get that disease or condition or not, it came into your life, and so just saying, "Okay, I've got this. Let's figure out how we get rid of this or heal it or best put it in remission."
yeah, I think
Yeah. But Lindsay, I know we can find you on Instagram at Migraine Road, and I will
mhm,
drop that link in the show notes for anybody who wants to learn more about your course and follow you. This has been so fun. Thank you so much for being here today.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you for being a part of my journey on What the Gut podcast. For a deeper dive into today's topics, head over to allisonandwellness.com/whatthegut or find the detailed show notes linked below. Hey, and don't miss out on future episodes. Hit that subscribe button, and if you love this one, please leave me a review. Let's keep the conversation going over on Instagram. Connect with me and stay updated and engaged with my awesome community. Plus, share these valuable insights with your tribe. They deserve to feel as amazing as you do. You can find me at Allison_and_wellness on Instagram. Your support means the world to me. I'm looking forward to our next awesome chat. But until then, stay curious, don't drink too much coffee, keep the vibrant energy flowing, and take care of your gut. Catch you real soon. Oh, and hey, if you're ready to dive deeper into personalized wellness, check out my one-on-one health coaching program at allisonandwellness.com. Let's make your journey to holistic health truly transformative.